Hello and welcome to the Ruslan Belov channel. Before we begin, I'd sincerely like to ask you to subscribe. Your subscription helps the channel grow. Thank you to everyone who has already subscribed. So today is July 23rd. It was said that negotiations would begin in Istanbul today, but it's obvious now that they won't start today. Most likely they will happen tomorrow or the day after. In any case, let me ask you, are you still expecting anything from these talks? Come on, it's clearly turned into some kind of circus, and nothing will come out of it. At most, maybe another prisoner exchange. That's it. Zelensky wants a meeting with Putin, but it's obvious Putin won't meet with him right now. Even Peskov said this yesterday. So what will this meeting achieve? What results will it bring? Clearly none. It's another theatrical performance we're all watching. Meanwhile, the fighting on the front continues, and we continue analyzing the situation at the front. All right, friends, there is quite a bit of positive news coming in from the front lines for the Russian side and from various directions. If yesterday we started the report with the situation near Pokrovsk, today we have very good updates from the Konstantinovka direction. Ukrainian defenses there have begun to noticeably weaken. And not just in one place, but across several sectors, their lines are collapsing. Let's begin today's report from the south and gradually move north, finishing with the situation in Sumy region, which I know many of you are concerned about based on the comments. So, starting from the south, as usual there's nothing to report from the Kherson direction, no real movement there. At most, there are skirmishes over the islands, and even those are rare. Heavy positional battles are ongoing. The Ukrainian forces are attacking, trying to regain lost positions on the right bank. They partially control the northern part of Kamenskoye. There have been claims that Kamenskoye is fully under Ukrainian control, but that's not true. About 85% is under Russian control, with some areas still held by Ukrainian forces. Russian troops are pushing forward, trying to shift the fighting from Kamenskoye to the next village, Plavny. The minimum goal for the summer campaign is to take Plavny, clear out Kamenskoye, and reach Stepnohirsk. Whether that will happen or not, time will tell. The situation here remains difficult. There are successes, but the Ukrainian forces are fighting fiercely, making progress hard. The second direction in Zaporizhzhia region is the Orikhiv area. Ukrainian cartographers are again downplaying Russian gains. In reality, fighting has already reached Malotokmachka, though this isn't fully shown on their maps. Moreover, over the past day, Russian forces advanced both south of Malotokmachka and within the village itself. Inside the village, the advance was about 400 meters, small, but considering it's a residential area, still notable. South of the village, the troops advanced about 1.5 kilometers, moving in a column under fire from Ukrainian forces. The ultimate goal here is, of course, to take the city of Orikhiv. But that's not likely to happen this year. More realistically, it's a goal for next year. The third hotspot in Zaporizhzhia region is the area east of Huliaipol. Battles have begun for Poltavka, which was expected. I told you in one of the previous reports that after the capture of Malinivka, an immediate offensive on Huliaipol was unlikely, contrary to what some were saying. Malinivka is poorly fortified due to its location. Poltavka and Malinivka are nearly connected, less than 1 kilometer apart, so if you take one, you must take the other, or else face counterattacks from the Ukrainian side. That's why yesterday Russian forces launched assault operations in Poltavka. This sector is difficult, so I don't expect quick results, and I advise you not to expect a fast breakthrough either. Now let's move from the Eastern Group's area of responsibility to another active sector. This is where we see almost daily progress and results. Currently, Russian forces are trying to advance from Zeleny Pole between Ukrainian strongpoints and enter the village of Timirivka. And just to clarify, Timirivka is already in Zaporizhzhia region, not Donetsk. There's no major breakthrough yet. They haven't entered the village, as it sits on high ground, but they have managed to get closer. To the north, things are going better. There are heavy battles for Voskresenka, and further north, Russian troops are trying to bypass the village and reach Oleksandrograd. Even further north, fighting is ongoing for Zeleny High. According to reports from the ground, the advance is going well. Although the village is not small compared to, say, Tolsta, already a third of it, and the troops entered only recently, is under full Russian control. Yalta, the Donetsk one, not Crimea, regardless of what Ukrainian channels claim, is not under Ukrainian control. The village is fully under Russian control. There were issues in the western part with Ukrainian sabotage recon groups slipping in. But those problems have been resolved. The Ukrainian flag they briefly raised has been removed, and the Russian tricolor is now flying in its place. No progress on the Novopavlivka sector. The front remains stable there. But fighting is underway in the village of Zverev and in Pokrovsk itself. Yes, this is already the 5th day since Russian forces entered, and the Ukrainian army still hasn't managed to push them out. This isn't some hit-and-run raid by a recon group. This is sustained fighting. Even the Ukrainians have admitted to casualties, both wounded and killed. As I said in yesterday's report, this isn't yet a full-scale storming of the city. These are reconnaissance in force operations. It just turned out that this sector of the Ukrainian defense was completely hollow, which allowed Russian troops to advance almost 1.5 kilometers into the city and reach Zaporizhzhia Street, where they ambushed a Ukrainian vehicle. One Ukrainian soldier was wounded, another killed, all as a result of actions by Russian assault troops who entered Pokrovsk. It turns out that Ukrainian defenses are not solid, and there are gaps that Russian forces are exploiting. A full-fledged assault on the city will only begin once all roads are under Russian control, if not physically, then at least under full fire control. At the moment, the northern highway is only partially controlled by Russian troops. But that could change within a couple of weeks. The Russian forces are already very close. Fighting is now ongoing near the Mayak neighborhood in the north and near Boykovka in the west. And from Boykovka, it's only 6.5 kilometers to the railway lines and 10 kilometers to the main highway. Also, according to neutral open-source observers, Russian forces have made a large leap toward the village of Zaporizhzhia, bypassing Ukrainian defensive lines. From those positions, they are close enough to bring the main supply highway of the Pokrovsk agglomeration under fire control, if not full control. At the same time, Ukrainian defenses are also noticeably deteriorating in the Konstantinivka sector. The battle for Popov Yar is over. The village is now under full Russian control, with video confirmation and a flag already raised. Russian troops have also entered Poltavka, and fighting is ongoing there. Let me remind you, the entire defensive line here is built on 3 villages: Popov Yar, Poltavka, and Rusin Yar. So what do we have now? Popov Yar gone. Poltavka half gone, with part of the village already under Russian control and active fighting ongoing. Only Rusin Yar remains. Once it falls, the Ukrainian defense line will collapse all the way to the next key point, the village of Dolha Balka. A bit further east, in the area of Yablunivka, there is also significant progress. Russian forces are getting closer to taking control of the settlements of Yablunivka and Oleksandr Shultin. To the east, the settlement of Shcherbinivka is already 1/3 under Russian control. The Russian advance here has accelerated, and soon the settlements of Shcherbinivka, Katerinivka, and Klebanbek are expected to fall under Russian control. But the problem for Ukraine isn't limited to just this area. Serious issues have also begun to emerge from the east, in the area of Bilahora, a small village. To be more precise, it's a stretched-out village, and it has now come under full Russian control. Moreover, Russian fighters are already attempting to enter Oleksandr Shultin, and I've even seen reports, including from Ukrainian sources, that they've managed to secure positions on the outskirts of the village. Although there is no visual confirmation yet, meaning no objective footage to verify it, so for now we take this information with caution. Still, only one village now separates Russian forces from the eastern outskirts of Konstantinivka, and that's it. A disaster. For the AFU, absolutely. From the Lyman front, we're also receiving very positive updates. Russian forces are advancing rapidly toward Shandryholov, gradually securing a large pocket of territory. So what's the overall takeaway? Conditions are now forming for the potential capture of 4 cities simultaneously: Pokrovsk, Mirnohrad, Rodinske, and Konstantinivka. The groundwork is being laid for a full-scale assault on these settlements, so the fall is expected to be very intense. The fighting on the front lines is forecast to be fierce. And that concludes the military update. Now, a few political news items. The Patriot missile system agreement still hasn't been finalized because Germany and Norway are waiting for guarantees from the United States. This was stated by Norwegian Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre after his meeting with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz in Berlin, according to NRK. Both countries need to receive assurances and compensation for paying for Ukraine's air defense. Thus, the final agreement has not yet been concluded. In theory, he asked the US to clarify how the Patriot deliveries to Ukraine are progressing. I believe President Trump's statement about being ready to help is a good starting point, but it needs to be clearly defined. Once a decision is made, and I hope that happens soon, Norway will be ready to share the costs, he said. According to Bloomberg, Trump's support for Ukraine may risk becoming his Afghanistan moment or a political disaster. The longer the war in Ukraine drags on, the more responsibility Donald Trump will bear for its outcome. The agency writes that deeper US involvement in the conflict could spark outrage among Trump's own supporters. But if Trump allows Russia to achieve lasting successes by holding back further aid, he could appear weak and face accusations that he didn't do enough to stop Putin, Bloomberg notes. Republican lobbyists advocating for aid to Ukraine fear that such a scenario could damage Trump similarly to how the US withdrawal from Afghanistan hurt President Biden's image. However, supporters of Trump from the MAGA movement argue the exact opposite. If Trump increases military aid to Kyiv, they say, it will doom him to political irrelevance. If President Trump sells them offensive weapons that can strike deep inside Russia, I don't see how it won't become Trump's war, said Trump's former advisor Steve Bannon. Zelensky has also received his first public rebuke from his Western sponsors over his attacks on Nabu. After Zelensky moved to limit the powers of the National Anti-Corruption Bureau, Western institutions began raising concerns about rising authoritarianism. Let me remind you, Nabu was created by Democrats to keep Ukraine's leadership in check and was originally made fully independent from the Ukrainian government. Western media is again voicing concerns about growing authoritarianism in Ukraine, following the passage of a bill that limits Nabu's powers. Zelensky is afraid of an audit, writes Diana Panchenko. Today, Zelensky is conducting raids and arrests within NABU, the very bureau created by the Americans to oversee Ukrainian officials. At the same time, Zelensky is planning to impose a moratorium on business inspections. And how do you think was Western aid and money from the Ministry of Defense embezzled? Through fake companies in business. Now he wants to ban audits of those businesses. Zelensky is clearly afraid of an audit and is doing everything he can to prevent it. The outlet Legitimny adds, most likely Zelensky is trying to trade off the Nabu case in exchange for halting investigations into his inner circle. If he succeeds, it will show that his entourage is well protected. Colleagues have suggested that Zelensky is betraying the Democrats and moving under Trump's wing. But that's not accurate. He's simply exploiting the current weakness of the Democrats and Soros-backed groups to secure his grip on power. At the same time, he hasn't abandoned the broader goal assigned to him by his sponsors, to entangle Trump further in the Ukrainian crisis. Our take is, Zelensky, as usual, will betray everyone. In the end, his former allies, friends, and sponsors may eventually get rid of him, but they'll blame it all on the Kremlin.